Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. I am your host, Mike Jokum. Jess joins me, and joining us this afternoon is driver of the number 26 Andretti Autosport car, Zach Veach. Zach, first off, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Just ready to go racing again. We got a bit of a 4-week break here between Texas and Indy GP, so it's a lot of time to sit and think about what we just did, and a lot of time to sit and look forward to the next race.
Yeah, it's almost like off-season part 2. So with that being said, before I go into any racing questions, we have to ask, what is the latest on the Toastmaster 2500?
I'd say probably still about the same. It's like 90%. We, my girlfriend, she turned 27. I guess you're not supposed to say a lady's age, so I apologize. But her birthday was about a week and a half ago, so we took Toast down to the Red River Gorge and went rock climbing for her birthday. And honestly, that was like the first real trip that we've had since we had the fridge and the kitchen counter and bed and stuff put in. So it was nice. You know, we had 3 nights of sleeping in Toast, of cooking in Toast, and just enjoying that life. And to be honest, it was really nice. You know, everyone that I've told about the van, they immediately go to the Chris Farley, living in a van down by the river skit. So on our third final day, she wanted to go to a park in southern Indiana called Clifty Falls, and it's right across the Ohio River between Kentucky and Indiana. So that night we parked right along the river and we slept there, and a lot of people got a lot of laughs out of that.
Love it. So real quick, before I turn it over to Jess, I have to ask, the INDYCAR Girlfriends and Wives did the iRacing event, I think a week or 2 ago. How much coaching did you give your girlfriend, and what was it like to kind of be on the watching end of things for a change?
You know, the funny thing is I had so much fun talking to other drivers about how it went with their girlfriend, because we all got yelled at because we kept saying too much. And in not growing up in a background of motorsports, all the girls were starting in the same place basically, and it's funny, we were all kind of coaching them on the exact same things. So it was really enjoyable. And Kate, she was actually really fast. I was upset the race went the way that it did for her, because I think she was running third, and someone basically just didn't know that she was below her, and just crashed into her and took her out. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. You know, next race, just keep your head up. Then the next race, she was running fourth. I think someone just hit the back of her and spun her out. And I was like, okay, now you can be mad. But the fun thing was, I think the girlfriends took away a bit of appreciation of how we feel when we're racing. The girlfriends and wives and even our fathers and families couldn't come to Texas, so they were all watching from home. And that's something Kate said. She kind of laughed and she goes, my heart was nervous like it was when I was taking a restart on the sim, when I was watching you take a restart. So that was kind of neat, because she'd never experienced anything like that before.
I think my favorite part, and my wife commented on this too, was, so we had Sage Karam and his girlfriend Abby's Twitch stream on, and when you'd see something happen and everybody go, "Oh, I'm so sorry for hitting you," and that's obviously nothing, you never hear something like that in IndyCar, especially the IndyCar iRacing. So it was fun to watch.
Well, the funniest thing I took away from it was, there's this nice guy that got, the wrong end of the stick, Greg West. He was from iRacing, and he was in charge of taking care of all the IndyCar drivers and making sure we put on a good show. And he wasn't mean, but he was very hard on us, because granted, we're all a bunch of 12-year-olds when it comes to competing against each other. So we never said sorry. We never said thank you, as often as we should. So then he starts working with all the wives, and it was like 3 hours into the first day, and he goes, "This is so much better than working with your boyfriends and husbands. You guys listen, you say thank you," and we all felt personally attacked.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case. I'm going to ask you one that's not racing related either here, just to get us some I guess fun in the beginning. Did you get the chance to learn any new skills while you were in quarantine?
Ooh, I wouldn't say it happened during quarantine, but it started happening towards the end of the season that I've really started to enjoy cooking. That was one of my goals for this season, was just to eat better and actually like make my own food. I was terrible of doing takeout and things. So I started, I think it's called HelloFresh. Yeah. And, they deliver like all the ingredients that you need for like 4 meals a week. So I'm cooking dinner 4 times a week, and I've really enjoyed that, getting to the point now where I can kind of just look at what I have in my fridge and make something that's pretty good. So I'd say that's gotten better in quarantine, because usually I wouldn't have had this much time home during this time to cook. But, I'd say probably cooking, and then just my woodworking skills, trying to finish up the van. That's been the 2 things. I'd like to say I got better at mowing my grass, but I just don't have the patience for it, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually used to do HelloFresh and I really enjoyed it. So that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, Kate appreciates a man that can cook too. So, it's double points.
I'm pretty sure that's half the reason why my wife keeps me around, is that I do the cooking every night. So I definitely understand. So switching gears here, you had a strong car pretty much right when you rolled off the truck. Practice, qualifying, obviously, the race finishing P4. What was the key to your success this weekend? Did you and Mark Bryant do any extra homework before you guys headed down to Texas last weekend?
I think the thing that helped so much was just kind of my mindset going into it. Mark, he did an incredible job with his homework, going into the event, but it's only his second year being an INDYCAR engineer. And to be honest, he was with a different driver last year, and they had some hard times on the oval. So Mark was a little worried about how it was going to go. He put so much pressure on himself, but I just kept telling him, like, man, it's going to be good. Like, I believe in you. You've done a great job for the races that you've done with me. Like, I have complete faith in you. And when we rolled off the truck and I did 4 laps and I came in, and he said, "How's the car?" And I'm like, "Man, it's pretty good." He took a sigh of relief. So, I'm so happy to be working with someone who doesn't have all the answers. Me and Mark were kind of the same level of experience in INDYCAR, and we're just enjoying it. It's just, we don't have it all figured out. And I think that's what makes us such a good combination, because we're just leaning on each other and doing something that's just a lot of fun. And the fun part made the weekend what it was. So I think that was something I didn't have much of last year. I put a lot of pressure on myself and the people around me. So I wasn't enjoying, this one thing that I wanted to do my entire life. And I think that was kind of the problem that I had in the car, of just putting good races together. So we showed up to Texas. We just wanted to enjoy the process and, just enjoy being a race car driver again. And once we were able to do that, man, it was easy.
Yeah, it looked like a fantastic race from start to finish there.
Yeah, thank you. It was a whole lot of fun. I really enjoy Texas. I'm going to win that race one day for sure. I just need a couple more things to go right, because we're always so quick there. But the last 2 years I've hit the wall in turn 2, and that was my whole goal, was not to touch that thing this year, and we succeeded.
So Texas has kind of a reputation of being a beast, and obviously you've said it yourself, you enjoy it. Do you try to follow a driving style of somebody in particular that you've watched, or do you just kind of wing it and go for it, because you seem to have it figured out?
Hey, well, so far we're 1 for 1 this year. We got I think, 14 or 13 other races we have to figure out still, but I think as far as my teammates go, I probably follow after Ryan Hunter-Reay the most, as far as how he likes the car to handle and how he drives it. Texas to me is just one of those cool places because it's one of the places we go to that still has that danger factor. It makes everyone a little bit nervous because it's so fast. And, when you come down pit lane after that race, you feel alive just a little extra because you've just been doing 215 miles an hour on a 1.5 mile oval. And you step out of the car and you walk sideways for 30 seconds because your brain is just, trying to relearn what's the normal. So I always go into Texas with a little extra motivation, but we're heading to places that I really like as well. Indy GP is coming up next. Last year we had a lot of potential. We were on a lap that was going to put us in the Fast 12 and arguably would have been good enough for the Fast 6. And I dropped the wheel coming onto the back straightaway. And those were the little mistakes that kind of plagued me all last year. And they're just ones of pushing too hard. So I'm hoping to, cut those out this year and just execute like we did last weekend.
Yeah, you did well. So hopefully it'll carry on.
Yeah,
thank you.
With Texas here, I guess the big talking point outside of the race itself or inside the race itself was the lack of a second groove, whether it was the traction compound issues or just the overall heat. So my first part of the question is, do you think Texas could have done anything different to improve that outer lane? And part two would be, if there was no tire stint limit for 35 laps, do you think the race might have gone differently?
Yeah, good questions. Hard questions. I think, Texas, I don't know if they could have done anything differently, to be honest, to improve the show. The stuff NASCAR laid down on that outside groove definitely was slick. I think it had 15% less grip than our normal racing line. So that definitely hurt us. But aside from never putting that down, I don't know how they could have cleaned it up because I believe they did an extensive job trying to prepare that groove for us. But, just looking back, maybe we need something like what NASCAR does, that's what they lay down to increase grip up there. Because the thing was, no one went up there because it didn't reward you. And it was just flat out scary. I tried to roll around the outside of Will Power on a restart, and I literally got side by side with him, nose to nose. And he kind of just laughed because he knew that there was no way I could stay up there. And sure enough, I had a big moment, had to back out of it and follow back in line. So that was difficult, because I needed that to be able to pass Newgarden. That's something I felt so upset with because I knew I had a car to be on the podium with, but every time I got behind Newgarden, he ran, that championship line that you just couldn't get around him. So you're just kind of, stuck there without any extra options. And moving on to the tire stint, just for whatever reason, we were very hard on the tires. Not as hard as Penske though. I mean, you'd follow the Penske guys and they were in trouble after about 10 or 15 laps, but when they would call me in and say, okay, bud, we got 5 more laps to go, that was a bit of a relief, honestly. I didn't want to go more than 35 laps on the tires that we had. So part of that's just not having a lot of preparation because of COVID this year. Firestone always does a great job, and they took a big guess, an educated guess on what we needed for Texas, and they did a great job figuring out how many laps was reasonable for us to go on what they brought. So, hands down, great job by them. It was a tough place because of the way the world was the past 3 months. So, I think next year should be hopefully a different story.
So due to COVID, there were some new regulations at the racetrack. How did that affect your team atmosphere?
For us, it changed the dynamic quite a bit. At Andretti, with us having 18 cars, we have one big trailer that the 6 of us sit in, the drivers with their engineers. And at the end of each session, we all sit in the same room and we go through what we changed, what we liked, and what we didn't like, and how to prepare for the next run. So for us, the teams were not allowed to do that. So it basically created 6 one-car teams at Andretti Autosport. We were still sharing limited information back and forth, what you could digest in a very short time. But in my transporter, my trailer, it was just my engineer, my assistant engineer, and myself. And that was the same case in Rossi's and Ryan's trucks as well. So that changed it a bit. We all had to wear masks at the racetrack, which was less than ideal because it was 98 degrees and about 40% humidity. So that was very tough. But, whatever we need to do to be back to racing, I think all of us are okay with.
Yeah, definitely understand that. So it was nice to be able to sit down and just have a normal, quote unquote, normal Saturday covering a race. I guess a different normal. So with that being said, I think on the media call last week, you mentioned potentially running a tinted visor to help with any sort of visibility concerns. Did you end up running the visor tear off that had a tint to it?
So normally that would have been the case if the race started in a normal time. I think usually the race started at 8 p.m. Local time there at Texas, and it started about an hour early this year. So it didn't get to a true night race to the last maybe 15, 20 laps. So with that being said, I think we all opted to, we call it a light smoke visor. So, it's not really tinted like sunglasses, but it's not clear. It's somewhere in the middle. And that's what I wore all race long. And, we were all worried about how the aeroscreen was going to be with sun on it and how the aeroscreen got dirty. But it wasn't a problem at all. I didn't have to have a tear-off pulled on my aeroscreen till the third stop. And even at that point, if I had to, I could have gone to the end of the race, I think. So, a lot of variables going in that we were left with a lot of questions, before the event. And at the end of it, I think they were all answered and none of them were a problem.
You led into one of my later questions. I'll just add it as a quick follow-up. Did the aeroscreen have any cooling issues? Was the helmet cooling pretty successful for the most part?
It was the one place that it did make life a whole lot harder was sitting in pit lane. Typically it's hot there anyways, but sometimes you'd get a light breeze on your face if you didn't have a fan on. And that was just a bit of a relief. Between practice and pit stop practice, we had about an 8-minute downtime window, and we had an issue with my fan. So I had to sit in the car for 8 minutes without any airflow. And I started not to panic, but I was thinking about panicking. I was like, man, this is really, really uncomfortable. But as soon as you got on the racetrack, the cooling was more than adequate. Throughout the entire race, I wasn't really that much hotter than normal. One cool advantage, though, that we have now with the aeroscreen that we didn't before is under yellow, you can pop your visor and just drive around with your visor open. And you're getting a lot of air into your helmet, and you're not having to worry about debris from the car in front of you hitting you in the eye. So that was something that was neat. And then I was following, I think, Will Power around, and I saw him sticking his hand out of the aeroscreen, into the air. And I was like, oh, man, he's cooling his hands down. So then I started doing that, and that helped as well. So, it's just as we went, we kept finding little tricks of, how to make life a little more easy when you're behind that thing. But at the end of the day, it's nowhere near what we thought it was going to be. I think they've done an incredible job, and it's just the norm now. I don't think it's changed the experience that much, and definitely not in a negative way. Plus, you can feel like you have a higher chance of going home at the end of the thing. So I think, we're all happy with it.
That's never a bad thing.
Exactly.
So on the same subject, did it take very long for you to get used to how the aeroscreen affects the center of gravity and the handling of the car at all?
So to be fair, I really didn't notice too big of a difference with the car. I don't think it changed the balance of the race car all that much. The biggest thing that it took away from us is the feeling of deceleration on the cool down lane and into your pit box. So Years prior, it sounds kind of silly, but we were using the air pressure on our helmet and the sound of the wind going around your helmet to kind of gauge how fast you're going, especially into your pit box. And now with the aeroscreen, you've lost that kind of sensation. So the first couple of pit stops that we did in practice kind of felt odd, felt like you're kind of in a fishbowl. But as soon as your mind just kind of thought, okay, well, this is gone, now I need something new, it picked up a new kind of sense of weight in the steering wheel, and then you use that to gauge your speed. And that's what, I thought was pretty cool, just how quickly your mind can adapt to new things. And now it's not a problem at all.
Good. Glad to hear it. Glad it didn't take too long. So kind of switching gears here, we all missed the month of May. I'm sure you did as well. What did you miss the most, and what is your favorite pre-race tradition?
Yeah, that's a good question. The whole month of May went by pretty normal for us. We weren't thinking about, too much. Granted, we all woke up every day and we joke about like, oh, today would have been a bad day for practice because it was like raining. So I paid attention to the weather a lot. But it wasn't until Sunday morning when I woke up and it was supposed to be race day, I just kind of felt depressed. That whole day I was just kind of pouty. It felt weird and wrong. And the thing that I missed most is just the fan experience from the whole thing. I love seeing the people standing in a mob outside your garages, and I miss the drivers parade and walking through Gasoline Alley on race day morning and seeing, hundreds of thousands of people just, finding their seats, which was cool. But I think my favorite part of the entire Indy 500 experience is getting strapped in your car. You have those butterflies in your stomach. You feel slightly uncomfortable because the car's not running yet, but then you hear back home again in Indiana. And to me, that's the entire Indy 500 experience. Is when that song comes on, I always kind of get, tears in my eyes, because as a kid, that was my favorite part of the whole thing. And now to be sitting there as a driver, it's pretty special. And I got kind of one tradition that I always do during the parade laps. We have one lap where we get to go drive around 3 wide and wave at the fans. When I go through turn 3, I always look about 3 rows from the top and then about the middle of that grandstand. And I always see my 12-year-old self sitting beside my dad just in awe, because that was my very first Indy 500 experience. And it's kind of a little salute to myself that I do every year, just thinking that, I was just a kid with a dream sitting there, and now I'm one of the guys that some other kid's looking at thinking, man, that'd be so cool to do one day.
Yeah, I grew up here in Indy, and it's definitely an amazing experience every year. And I get teary-eyed also, so can't blame you at all.
Yeah, perfect.
I think that answer gave me goosebumps just sitting back and listening to it. So let's see here. After the race on your radio, I'm going to paraphrase this. You said this was the best weekend of your career, obviously tying your best finish of P4. So what made this race and this Texas event so special for the best weekend of your career so far?
For me, it was a feeling that I haven't had since Indy Lights. And chemistry with your engineer is such an important thing. The engineer that I had the last 2 years, I really respect the guy, and he's a great engineer, but we sometimes just didn't click on that kind of, being able to have that telepathic conversation, you know what I mean? So now that I have Mark Bryant, I started noticing it at Indy Lights. Not Indy Lights, but at Sebring, I came home and I was talking to my dad about the test, and I said, man, it was just like being in the Lights car, where I'd come in and say, the car's pretty good, but I need a little more of this. And he would make a change, and I'd go out and the car would be a little bit better. And I'd go a tenth faster, and I'd come back in and I'd say, man, that was better, but now this is a problem. I'd go out, it would be fixed, and we'd go a tenth faster. And Mark and I just had that feeling. It felt like a Lights weekend at Texas, because we showed up, went out into practice. We did three changes to make the car better. We went into qualifying. It was just kind of effortless in qualifying. You know, I was pushing, but I wasn't pushing too hard, and it felt, you know, seamless. And then in the race, I don't think I ever felt urgency. You know, it was just, I kept telling my spotter, hey man, I'm just going to coast here. I'm just going to follow and ride behind Newgarden or whoever I was behind. And I felt in control the entire day. And, you know, that's a feeling that I hadn't had in IndyCar yet. I look at our 4th place finish at Long Beach, and, you know, pit sequence really helped us get that 4th place. This 4th place, we ran there all day long. I think over 200 laps, my average position was 5th. So to come home one spot better than that, I felt like I truly earned it this weekend.
I love it. Yeah, I think it was a fantastic weekend or day, whatever you want to call it, all around.
Yeah, exactly. Old habits die hard.
So obviously this schedule has changed multiple times and tracks have fallen off or been moved. What track at this point now are you looking forward to the most after Texas?
Yeah, I think I'm going to make my own question and say, what track am I missing the most? And that's Detroit. You know, I was really bummed that we lost the Belle Isle Grand Prix, because Detroit's always been one of my favorite places that we go to. But as far as tracks I'm looking forward to going back to, Iowa is definitely high on that list, just because we always seem to have one of the better days out of the team there. Iowa's always been good to me. And Portland, you know, I really hope Portland sticks around, which I think it's going to. You know, the only race that I would think would be in question right now is Laguna, just because of everything that's happening in California. But, you know, that's so far away, it's hard to say how that's going to go yet. But I'd say probably Iowa and Portland are the two that I'm looking most forward to.
We like to say on the show that everything is changing by the minute, so I completely understand what you mean, and Iowa is going to be so fun as a doubleheader.
Yeah, you know, that's what I was thinking about is, you know, last year I think we went from 16th to 7th or 6th or something, and we just had a good race car all night. So I was just thinking, man, if we could do what we did at Texas, qualify better at Iowa, and do that 2 nights in a row, that'd be great for us in the championship.
Heck yes, it'll be fun to watch.
And hopefully in Iowa, it won't be 847 degrees this year. That's my only Iowa request for 2020.
Yeah, please.
That was insane. So obviously, as we mentioned, you started off the season tying your best career finish. Is this the biggest confidence boost you can get going into a kind of, as I said at the beginning, an off-season part 2 before the Indy GP?
You know, definitely. I feel just relief, honestly. You know, it's weight off your shoulders when you have a good weekend. It's just something that makes life a little bit easier for these next 4 weeks, and it's so good to have a good result, because you take that energy into everything that you do. You know, just like training at Pit Fit the last 2 days, you have a little extra energy to do that one extra rep or, you know, run that extra mile, just because you feel like you're getting rewarded for the effort that you put in before Texas. So now you're motivated to put even more in. So this has been great for us to sit and think about it. You know, with 4 weeks between the 2 events, you definitely don't want to have a bad race at Texas, because, man, you know, you're only as good as your last race. That's something that I've always really believed in, because that's how it feels. So just to have a good last race means everything.
Going into the next race, it is going to be a doubleheader with NASCAR. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we'll see. You know, I think it would be really cool. There's some NASCAR drivers that I really like and respect. So there's some that, you know, I always cringe when I see how they act and behave. But we'll leave that at that. But I'm excited to hopefully meet some of those guys. You know, like I've always been a fan of Bubba Wallace. I'd like to be able to walk over to the garage and say hey to him. And of course, you know, Chase Elliott, he's been doing a great job. He's another young guy. And, Jimmy Johnson, he came to our INDYCAR garages during the Indy 500 last year. So I want to see those guys. And, I think it'll be awesome to have a crossover that I hope continues. I don't see a reason why INDYCAR and NASCAR couldn't do more events together at the end of the day. And the cool thing is, we're doing the road course, they're doing the oval, obviously. But I think it would be a whole lot of fun for us both to do an oval someday, just so people can see that we're just a little bit faster, aren't we?
That would be fun to hear what the NASCAR fans had to say on an oval race. But yeah, hopefully you guys will make some new friends and keep that up for the long term.
Yeah, I really think it'll be great. It's something I'm so happy Roger has control of the series now, and not saying it wasn't done well before, but just Roger he's a racer, and he's got that mindset of being a driver and a team owner, and he's going to do what the fans want to see, because at the end of the day, Roger Penske is a race fan. That's why he does what he does, and I think he's going to bring a lot of good change for all of us.
I agree.
Yeah, I still think we need a Roger Penske hashtag like the NJ Friday We Trust one from a couple of years ago. So anybody listening, we're open to suggestions, because I think we were supposed to come up with one like a month ago and we kind of forgot. So maybe we should get on that. But nonetheless, in order for you to continue the momentum you've started the season off with at the Indy GP, what do you and Mark Bryant and the 26 team need to accomplish?
I think for us, it's just, this is always a big year, because it's a contract year, as people say. For us, it's just consistently being in the top 10. If we can have a good year like we've started, and, you finish this season in the top 10 in the championship, it's really easy to show that you belong here. We had that good rookie year, and it's funny how quickly people turn on you too. That's something that I realized that, and that's probably one of the things that I don't like about the sport. But, we had that great rookie year in 2018, and everyone's behind you saying, well, you're going to be great. You're going to have an awesome second year. And then our second year is a disaster. And then you have all these people saying, well, you shouldn't be here. You don't deserve to be in an IndyCar. And, it's just quick. It's funny how quickly things can change. But we need to have a good, strong year to just get our roots back into the ground here. Because last year was the worst year of my life, just as far as racing goes. So I want to make sure to have another year that we feel proud about. That's the main thing.
Off to a good start.
Exactly.
So I got to ask a fun question as we are getting close to wrapping it up here. I need to know what your spirit animal is and why.
Easy. It's Stingray.
Awesome.
I love marine biology. Marine life has just been something that's always intrigued me. And man, the stingrays just look so majestic, especially when they're flying through the ocean. They're basically underwater birds. So for me, I think it's the bat ray. It has the beautiful wingtips, and to me, that's always been an animal for whatever reason I've looked at, and I've just been in awe. So I'd say the stingray, because one, they're fast, and then they're in the ocean.
You will be happy to know that Scott Dixon also picked a marine animal. He picked the dolphin.
Really?
Yes.
That makes sense, because Scott's such a smart driver. You know what I mean? So yeah, he's got that next level of intelligence.
Yeah,
I like it. Stingray Veach. I think we've got a new nickname going here.
That's why I love. There's a pro Mazda driver that I had the pleasure of climbing with at a climbing gym here in Indy, Stingray Rob. And honestly, before I even met Stingray, I always rooted him on because of his name. So man, that's kind of badass. So then I finally got to meet him, and he's just a heck of a nice kid. So I like that.
Oh yeah, Stingray. I've talked to him a couple of times. He's one of the nicest kids I've ever talked to in the road to Indy paddock over the last couple of years, and Obviously, like you said, he's got a badass name, and that's his legal name is Stingray. I don't think it gets any cooler than that.
Exactly. My parents, they were too basic with the Zachary thing, so I had to take off the ARY to make myself a little bit cooler. But yeah, I can't keep up with him.
Okay, Mike is not only boring, but I'm Michael the Fifth. So there's like a bazillion Mikes in my house, so there is no originality there. Zach, we'll wrap it up with one final question here. Thanks for the time this afternoon, and obviously best of luck through the year. And hopefully we'll see you as soon as Road America rolls around. But there's an article circulating that Roger Penske is kind of toying with the idea that for a leader circle team to support maybe one Indy Lights entry to get the Indy Lights car count back to a stronger number. You spent some time in Indy Lights. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or maybe what Indy Lights needs to do to regain some footing and car count.
The tough thing about Indy Lights, currently, and heck, I'm still paying off the debt of my last Indy Lights season, but it was a risk that I had to take to get the life that I have now. But it takes close to $1.2 million to run an Indy Lights season. That's just ridiculous, for a feeder series car. I mean, add a couple million to that and you're running an INDYCAR. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think that's the biggest downfall of the Indy Lights car is just the expense that it takes to run that thing competitively. But the money aside, it's a fantastic race car. To this day, it's been one of my favorite cars I've ever driven. And Indy Lights is such an important series on the ladder to me. USF 2000 was fun. Pro Mazda was cool, but it wasn't until you got to Indy Lights that you really started to develop as a professional driver, because now you're running some super speedways. The relationship that you have with your engineer becomes more important because there's a lot more that you can change on the race car. The races get longer, so you're starting to understand what's it like to suffer for 45 minutes. So to me, it's so important that we have a good light season and a good light series. So I really hope that continues to grow, but I think whatever they can do to help limit the cost would go a long way, because that's a whole lot of money. And the tough thing is, when you get to Indy Lights, you've lost all of your money regardless, because you've gone through F2000, you've gone through Pro Mazda. Families can barely afford to support their kids in karting. So to get out of karting, you're having someone help you investor wise. And, by the time you get to Lights, you've used up a lot of that, a lot of those resources. So it needs to be cheaper for sure.
Yeah. You're not the first person to say that. So definitely understand there. So again, Zach, thanks for the time. Best of luck. Enjoy a couple weeks off and get that van up to 100%. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Thanks a lot.
Yep, bye.